My name is Celeste, I'm 36, and for the last 9 years I believed I was a wife. I ran our home, cooked every meal, folded every piece of laundry, and supported my husband, I thought, through everything. But that illusion shattered last winter. It was a Monday night. Snow was falling outside our home in upstate New York, and I had just lit a fire in the hearth when Elijah walked in, threw his briefcase down, and said, "I'm moving out. I'm marrying someone else." No preamble. No emotion. Just that. I blinked. "You're joking," I said, half laughing, half frozen. He looked at me like I was the stupid one. "Celeste, let's not make this dramatic. You and I both know this wasn't about love." I stared at him, trying to process his words. This man I had lived with, shared a bed with, supported emotionally and financially during his grad school years was now standing there telling me we were never real? "What are you talking about?" I asked. That's when he hit me with the real shock. "We never got legally married. I never filed the paperwork." I didn't see the point. My entire body went numb. We had a wedding, a guest list, vows, photos, a honeymoon in Montana. "You never filed it?" He sighed. "I was going to, but I figured, why complicate things? Besides, it made everything easier this way. No messy divorce." Like that, 9 years of what I thought was marriage vanished into thin air. "I loved you," I whispered. He just shrugged. "You were convenient. You were there when I needed a place to stay after grad school. And you made good coffee. But that's all this was." He walked into the kitchen, took a sip of the wine I had poured for him, the same wine we had at our wedding, and added, "You should start packing. I'll give you until the end of the week." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Because deep down, something in me had known. Looking back, the signs were always there. I just didn't want to see them. Elijah was charming, yes, but always just a little too polished. He had this way of making people feel special, like you were the only one in the room until you weren't. We met at a gallery opening in Beacon. He was wearing a navy corduroy blazer, sipping a bourbon, and talking about the symbolism in postmodern sculpture. I found him fascinating, sharp, cultured, unlike anyone I had dated before. At the time, I was managing a small independent bookstore in Hudson, living in a one-bedroom loft with exposed brick and dreams of starting a literary journal. He said he was in between graduate programs. Said he needed space. Said he didn't believe in leases. Within 2 months, he moved into my place temporarily. Within 6, we were engaged. Except there was never a ring. Just a verbal promise over cheap pad thai in bed one rainy night. Let's not do the whole proposal thing. Let's be different. We don't need a performance. We just need each other. That should have been my first red flag. But I was 27. Naive. In love. And frankly, a little afraid of ending up alone. We planned a small, intimate wedding in a botanical garden in Cold Spring. Just 25 guests. No officiant from the county, just a ceremonial minister, a friend of Elijah's from college who performed non-legal symbolic ceremonies. At the time, Elijah said he liked the idea of a spiritual union more than a governmental contract. I believed him. Afterward, I asked when we'd be filing the license. "Soon," he said. "Just need to get a few things in order." 9 years later, I realized that soon never came. Over the years, I did everything a wife would do. Took care of the house. Supported him through his PhD in comparative literature. Covered the bills when he couldn't. Cooked, cleaned, planned birthdays, remembered his mother's birthday, even took his dog to the vet when he was too busy. He never put me on his insurance. Never filed taxes jointly. Never put both our names on the lease when we upgraded to a nicer home in Rhinebeck. But I made excuses. He was eccentric. He was intellectual. He was just different. But the truth was, I let myself believe a lie. Because the alternative, that the man I loved, lived with, and built a life with, might not be who I thought he was, that was too painful to face. Until now. A few days after he told me to move out, I saw her. Her name was Maris. She showed up in our driveway on a Thursday afternoon in a brand new white Tesla, humming along to some indie pop song like she didn't just step into the ruins of someone else's life. I was on the porch, wrapping up a phone call with my sister when I saw her step out of the car. She was beautiful in that curated Instagram way. Flawless skin, long velvet coat, expensive leather bag, and a huge diamond ring. She looked at me, tilted her head, and smiled. "You must be Celeste. I've heard so much about you." I said nothing, just watched as she walked past me like I was a piece of forgotten furniture. Elijah came out moments later, kissed her on the cheek, and grabbed her luggage. "She's just here to see the place," he said, not even looking at me. "We're listing it next month. I'm buying a new condo in Albany, closer to her job." That was the first time I learned she worked in finance, something about private equity. She clearly made good money. And Elijah? He had apparently landed a lectureship at a nearby college, finally. I waited until she was out of earshot before I said, "You brought her to our house?" He chuckled. "It's not our house, Celeste. Your name's not on anything." The audacity of that sentence landed like a punch. "You can't just erase the past 9 years, I said. "Sure I can," he replied. "Legally, we were just roommates. There's no paper trail. No obligation. So unless you want to waste your time on a fake lawsuit, I'd suggest you pack up and move on." Then he leaned in closer, and his voice dropped into something darker. "And don't even think about going to my employer or her family with some sob story. She's from the Delano family. As in Delano Capital. One bad word from me and your next landlord might suddenly lose your paperwork. Get it?" He smirked. "You were comfortable. Now it's over. Take the hint." For the first time in my life, I felt dangerous silence rise inside me, not sadness, not fear, just silence. Because here's the thing. He thought I was going to cry. He thought I was going to beg. But what he didn't know is that I already knew. I had known for months, and I was already 2 steps ahead. 6 months before Elijah ever dropped the word divorce, I already knew something was off. He had started coming home later. He smelled like cologne he didn't used to wear. And he changed the passcode on his phone for the first time in years. So I did what any woman with instincts sharper than heartbreak would do. I called Shiloh Lang, a private investigator recommended by a former coworker who'd gone through something eerily similar. Shiloh was blunt, professional, efficient. "Do you want peace of mind?" she asked, "or leverage?" I said both. Within 2 weeks, she had everything. Photos of Elijah holding hands with Maris outside a bistro in Albany. Videos of them entering the same boutique hotel 4 weekends in a row. Screenshots of texts pulled from her device tracker, one of which read, "Don't worry, she still thinks we're married. It'll be a clean break. No mess, no court." But the biggest bombshell came when Shiloh called me one afternoon and said, "Celeste, it's not just the affair. You're not legally married to him." I froze. "I know. He told me that recently. I mean, I suspected it. We had the ceremony, but no, I mean officially. There's no marriage license on file." I double-checked the records in Dutchess County and surrounding jurisdictions. He never filed it. I sat in silence, staring out the window at the winter light bleeding across the trees. "I overheard them at a cafe," she continued. "He told Maris he intentionally never filed it so he wouldn't have to deal with divorce lawyers or give you a dime when he left. He said, and I quote, 'She was a placeholder.' I'm not about to pay a placeholder." I didn't even cry. I just said, "Good." That's all I needed to know. From that day on, I stopped waiting for closure. Instead, I started preparing a strategy. What Elijah didn't know was that New York recognizes common law partnerships in certain legal interpretations, especially if the couple lived together for an extended period, presented themselves as married, shared finances or assets, and especially if there was a wedding ceremony, even symbolic. Shiloh referred me to a lawyer named Marina Keats, who specialized in marital fraud and asset disputes. "You may not have a piece of paper," Marina said, flipping through the binder of evidence I brought, "but you have something far more powerful, proof of betrayal, intention, and dependency. We're going to make him pay." And that was when I smiled for the first time in weeks. 'Cause Elijah thought he had erased me with a technicality. But what he didn't realize is that some women don't break. They wait. And then they rebuild with fire. 2 weeks later, I showed up at the house with a calm smile and a messenger bag full of documents. Elijah was in the living room, half draped over the couch in his smug, self-satisfied way, sipping his artisanal coffee like a man who'd already won. "Didn't expect to see you back here," he muttered. "Thought you'd be off licking your wounds somewhere." I took a seat across from him. "Actually," I said, unzipping the bag, "I'm here to deliver these." I handed him a formal notice of intent to claim for spousal support, property division, and damages based on fraudulent misrepresentation in what my attorney termed a de facto marriage. First, Elijah didn't even read it. He just rolled his eyes. "Celeste, this is embarrassing. We weren't married. There's no record, no paperwork. You don't have a leg to stand on." I stayed silent, waited, then watched his face fall when he saw the names at the bottom of the documents. Shiloh Lang, licensed PI, Marina Keats, ESQ attorney, and a full dossier listing. Receipts, joint utility accounts, photos from our wedding, affidavits from friends and neighbors, and, most damningly, transcripts of the recorded conversation he had with Maris about how he'd never filed the license on purpose. "You recorded me?" he snapped, his voice rising. "No," I said. "Your mistress did. You just didn't notice Shiloh sitting 2 tables away." He stood up, pacing. "This is insane. You're not getting a penny. We had an agreement." "No," I said, still sitting calmly. "You had control. Now I have facts." Then I dropped the last bomb. "If you want to settle quietly, we can. If not, I'll go public. I've already drafted the letter to your university's ethics committee. And one for Maris's firm, too. I believe Delano Capital frowns on knowingly dating a man who committed civil fraud against a partner." He looked like I'd stabbed him in the gut. Because everything he built, the job, the new fiancé, the polished image, was suddenly made of glass. "This could ruin everything," he said. "Then you probably shouldn't have lied to me for 9 years, I replied. By the end of that week, my lawyer had served formal papers. He was officially under civil litigation for misrepresentation, financial exploitation, emotional distress, and unlawful eviction from shared property. But the best part? Marina found a legal loophole based on precedent that allowed us to freeze his financial assets temporarily during the process. "You just bought yourself a seat at the table," she told me. Elijah, who had spent a decade treating me like a silent fixture in his life, was now powerless to stop what was coming. And I was just getting started. 2 days after serving Elijah, I did the one thing he begged me not to do. I called his parents. I didn't need to say much. Just, "I thought you should know. Elijah and I were never legally married." He admitted he never filed the license. For 9 years, I thought I was his wife. There was silence. Then Elijah's mother, Vivian, responded, voice tight. "That can't be true. We paid for the wedding." "It's true," I said. "I have proof. And he's engaged to someone else now. He brought her to our house last week." Then I called my own parents. They were heartbroken, but supportive. "Come home," my mother said. "Let us take care of you." But I didn't want to run. I wanted accountability. So I invited both families over to the house that weekend. It was like staging a live intervention with court documentation. Elijah tried to weasel his way out the second everyone sat down. "Look, it was a misunderstanding," he mumbled. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I thought it was obvious we weren't actually married." "Obvious?" his father barked. "You let us call her our daughter-in-law for 9 years." His mother looked pale. "We told everyone you were married. You let us. You lied to our entire family." My father, normally reserved, stood up and slammed a folder down on the coffee table. "My company worked with your university on a joint publishing project based on your recommendation, Elijah. If you think for a second I won't revoke that, think again." Elijah turned to me, face flushed. "You're going to ruin my career over what, revenge?" "No," I said. "Not revenge. Justice. You made a fool of me, my family, and yours. And you thought you could walk away untouched." Then his mother, still stunned, whispered to him, "Is this why you always dodge talking about insurance, taxes, mortgages? We asked you so many times. You always brushed it off." "I didn't want to be trapped," he finally exploded. "I never wanted to get married in the first place. But everyone pushed me, especially you." The room went dead silent. He had just blamed his mother for his deception. "You coward," she whispered. "You lied, manipulated, and now you can't even take responsibility." That day, Elijah was disowned by his own parents. He moved out of the house the following week and into some grim studio apartment near campus. And Maris? She didn't take it well. It was only a matter of time before the mess Elijah created spilled beyond our personal circles. And when it did, it hit hard. The first crack came at Adler College, where Elijah had just secured a lectureship in literary theory. One of Marina's paralegals leaked the legal filings to faculty HR, citing ethical concerns. Apparently, universities don't look kindly on instructors being sued for prolonged fraud, financial manipulation, and civil partner abandonment. I heard from Shiloh the day it hit campus. "You've become quite the topic in the English department." But the real storm came when Maris, his golden fiancé from Delano Capital, received a notice of third-party involvement in the civil claim. Legally, she wasn't being sued yet, but she was listed as a potential co-beneficiary in a fraudulent partnership split. Basically, if she helped hide assets or benefited from the manipulation, she could be liable. That didn't sit well with someone who wore $800 heels to brunch. I didn't even have to confront her. She confronted him. Right in the university parking lot. I wasn't there, but Shiloh was. She happened to be shadowing Elijah for asset tracking. "She went nuclear," Shiloh said. Started yelling, waving papers in the air, screaming about how he said there'd be no legal complications. One of the interns recorded it. The video hit TikTok in 48 hours. Caption: "When your professor's girlfriend finds out he lied about being married for 9 years eyes, #drama at Adler, #cheater exposed." Maris's voice was clear and furious. "You told me it was fake. That she knew. That it was just for show. You told me there was no risk. Keep your voice down." Elijah snapped. "Oh, now you want quiet?" she screamed. "You're a fraud. I'm not going down for this." Then she slapped the papers into his chest and stormed off. The fallout was immediate. Delano Capital placed Maris on administrative leave. College opened a formal ethics review into Elijah. And donors started pulling support from a program he had helped build. He sent me a desperate email the next day. Subject line: "Can we talk?" "Celeste, please. You've made your point. I'm being destroyed here. This doesn't have to go any further." I didn't reply, but my lawyer did. She sent a counteroffer. $95,000 in damages and back support, 50% of jointly acquired furniture and art, and a formal written admission of wrongdoing to be filed with the court. He had 10 days to respond. 10 days passed. On the 11th, we received a reply. Elijah had signed the agreement. No arguments. No negotiation. Just one cold, typed sentence in his signature letterhead. I, Elijah Ward, acknowledge that I withheld legal marriage filing from Celeste Monroe with full knowledge and intent, misrepresented our relationship, and accept the terms of civil responsibility as outlined. Marina called me that morning. Congratulations, she said. It's done. You won. The wire transfer arrived the following week. $95,000. Half the value of our joint property. Half of the artwork I had curated for our home now sold. A formal admission filed with the local court. Permanent. Public. But money wasn't the part that mattered. What mattered was that I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't just a woman quietly erased from a man's story. I was the story now. A few months later, I moved to Portland, Maine, a city with cold air, clean light, and zero memories of him. I found work at a small press that publishes debut poets. Quiet, meaningful work. Work with soul. And that's where I met Nathaniel. He was nothing like Elijah. He was kind. Grounded. A little awkward in the best way. He respected my independence. He loved my mind. We dated for over a year before we ever talked about marriage. When we did, he asked if I wanted to elope. I said no. I wanted paperwork. I wanted pens, signatures, and certified copies. I wanted truth in ink. We filed for our license together, walked hand in hand into the clerk's office. He looked me in the eyes and said, "You'll never have to wonder with me." A few months ago, I got a message from an unknown number. The preview read, "Is it true you got married again?" I didn't answer. I just blocked it. 'Cause that chapter is over. Elijah Ward is now a former adjunct professor. Delano Capital quietly let Maris go. His name still appears on faculty websites, but only in archived PDFs from a year no one brags about. And me? I go home to a man who holds my hand like it's a promise. I no longer wait to be chosen. I choose myself first, last, always. And I have no regrets.